The anticipation had been simmering for weeks. Karoline Leavitt, 27, the youngest White House press secretary in history, Gen Z flair with unapologetic loyalty to Donald Trump, was set to appear on The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. It wasn't just another interview. It was a cultural collision. Trump had only just begun his second term, already under fire for barring AP and Reuters from cabinet meetings, slapping tariffs on Canada, and pushing a controversial Russia-Ukraine deal. And each time Karoline took the mic, whether calling Canada on its knees or turning the White House TikTok into a viral GOP PR machine, she lit up cable news. Some called her a rising star. Others called her a dangerous mouthpiece. Colbert, never one to pull punches, had promised to hold her accountable. The stage was set not for a conversation, but for a showdown. The applause hadn't even faded when Karoline Leavitt walked out, blonde hair shining beneath the lights, dressed in black with Gen Z edges, an oversized blazer, white sneakers. Her smile was measured, her eyes sharp. The crowd was electric. Cheers clashed with boos. She waved once, calm and composed, and took her seat opposite Colbert. He leaned in, signature half smile in place, voice smooth as ever. Karoline, welcome. 27? White House press secretary. That's impressive. So tell me, does working for Donald Trump ever feel like babysitting someone who refuses to grow up? Laughter erupted. Cheers! A few whistles. Karoline didn't flinch. She smiled lightly. Thanks for the welcome, Stephen, she said coolly. But no, I don't babysit. I work with the GOAT, the greatest of all time. He's saving America. I'm just here to help. Colbert raised an eyebrow. GOAT? Bold. Let's talk about that saving America thing. Last week you said Canada is on its knees after the tariffs. You think that's diplomacy or just flexing muscle? The crowd hushed. Karoline tilted her head, her voice unwavering. You want to talk economics? Let's talk numbers. Canada relies on us more than we need them. Tariffs are leverage. Trump plays tough. And it's working. We win. They lose. No cap. A ripple of applause. Scattered. Uneasy. Colbert gave a tight nod. No cap. Love the Gen Z branding. But let's talk truth. Last month, AP and Reuters were banned from cabinet meetings. Is that what truth looks like now? A filtered press? His tone had sharpened. He wasn't smiling. Karoline leaned in, fingers lightly touching the armrest. Stephen, don't dramatize. We didn't silence anyone. We just stopped giving platforms to outlets that push narratives instead of facts. Americans are tired of legacy media. We're rebuilding trust by being selective with who gets in. That's not censorship. That's a vibe check. Gasps and laughter rippled through the crowd. Colbert chuckled dryly. A vibe check for the press? Sounds a lot like narrative control. Freedom of the press isn't a TikTok invite list. It's the backbone of democracy. The applause was louder this time. Karoline's smile grew sharper. Stephen, are you stuck in 1990? People trust results. Jobs are up. The economy's stabilizing. Peace abroad. We don't need legacy media to validate that. I've got TikTok, X, and 728,000 followers. We talk to the people directly. She crossed her arms. That's not control. That's clarity. If you want to talk about freedom, maybe ask why so. Many outlets only tell one side of the story. The air in the studio thickened. Cheers mixed with boos. The ideological tension was no longer subtext. It was center stage. Colbert tapped the desk, leaning forward. The way a fighter leans in before the final punch. Cutting out the outdated middleman, huh? So when the White House bans journalists for asking tough questions, that's just strategy? Silence. Karoline raised an eyebrow, a smirk blooming. She saw it coming. Stephen, are you trying to cast me as the villain here? She said, voice like a scalpel. Because if I'm the villain for saying the press should tell the truth, then maybe that says more about you than me. The audience exploded. Cheers and jeers. Applause and disbelief. Colbert's smile froze, then slowly returned, sharper than before. But the moment was hers. Leavitt's voice cut through the tension. Let me clear it up for you, and for everyone here. We're not muzzling anyone. AP and Reuters weren't banned for asking questions. They were banned because they've stopped reporting. They spin. They distort. They push an anti-Trump narrative that twists facts into fiction. She scanned the room. Americans aren't stupid. They see it. If you want, in the room. Play fair. That's not censorship. It's putting the people above the old media machine. Applause erupted from one side of the studio, loud and defiant, but the boos from the other corner were just as fierce. Colbert raised an eyebrow, clearly unsatisfied. Play! Fair, huh? He repeated, his voice rising slightly, sarcasm dripping. You just called two of the world's most respected news outlets dishonest, and then claimed your administration, which isn't exactly known for transparency, gets to decide what counts as truth. Don't you see the problem? He leaned in. Press. Freedom isn't something the White House filters like an Instagram friends list. Laughter burst from the audience, sharp, pointed, with a few high-pitched whistles of approval. Leavitt didn't flinch. She straightened in her chair, one hand, gesturing as if she were talking directly to her TikTok followers. Stephen, if you want to talk contradictions, let's start with you. Her tone was calm but slicing. You make millions mocking people like me, then claim to be some kind of champion for truth. I grew up in a middle-class home in New Hampshire. No privilege, no connections. My parents sold ice cream and used trucks to make ends meet. She paused. I know what Americans care about more than some ivory tower newsroom, or a millionaire TV host pretending to understand them. There was a beat of silence, then more applause, louder this time. We didn't ban AP and Reuters to hide. We did it to protect the truth from distortion. Trump works for the people, not for media corporations. Colbert laughed, but the sound was dry. Oh, that's touching, Karoline. Truly. But you still haven't answered the question. He leaned forward, his tone tightening. If Trump's so transparent, why not let the press do their job? Why pick who gets access and who doesn't? Sounds less like protecting truth, and more like hiding from it. The audience clapped sporadically. Some heads nodded, others stayed frozen. Leavitt smiled, defiant, unshaken. You're trying to steer this, Stephen, but I'm not playing along. Her voice steadied, commanding the room. We're not scared of being exposed. We're done wasting time on outlets that don't care about truth. You know how many Americans have left old media behind? They're on X, TikTok, Instagram. They want honesty, not spin. She pointed to herself. I've got 728,000 followers, not because I make things up, but because I keep it real. If you want transparency, maybe ask why the media only ever tells one side. She crossed her arms. Her gaze locked on him, unflinching, daring him to respond. Colbert shook his head slowly. His grin had tightened into a hard line. Talking straight on TikTok, he muttered. You're turning the White House into a social media stunt, but I guess that's the Gen Z way. Dodging real questions with dance clips. Laughter. Louder now. Scattered applause. He leaned in, his voice low, sharp. You say you're real, but all I see is someone justifying the chokehold on the press by blaming the press. That's not logic. That's propaganda. Leavitt laughed lightly. No humor in it. Dance clips? No cap, Stephen. I've never danced on TikTok. But if I did, I'd outdo you. A few chuckles rippled through the audience. Then her expression hardened. You want logic? Here it is. Old media lost America's trust. We're not choking the press. We're replacing it with something better, something direct. Her voice rose with conviction. Trump doesn't need you to explain who he is. And neither do I. Ask whatever you want, but don't expect me to play by your script. She paused. That script? It's outdated, just like the network you're sitting in. The studio was dead silent for a moment. The applause came slowly, then louder, but the boos and grumbles were still there, rumbling just beneath. Colbert leaned forward, hands on the desk. The smirk was gone. His eyes had sharpened. The showdown wasn't over. Colbert's voice dropped, deliberate and clear. You say you're changing the world, Karoline, but I see it differently. You're not just a press secretary. You're complicit in undermining American democracy. He leaned in, his tone turning razor sharp. You're not empowering Gen Z. You're turning them into a mouthpiece for a man clinging to power by strangling freedom. What do you say to that? The words hit like a shockwave. The audience gasped, some applauding, others shouting back. Tension crackled like static in the studio. Karoline Leavitt didn't move at first. Her eyes narrowed. Then came a slow, cold smile, the kind that promised fire. She crossed her arms, head tilted slightly, as if calculating every move. The studio fell dead silent. Stephen, she said, voice low and smooth. You just accused me of betraying democracy? She let the question hang before continuing. You think I'm selling out Gen Z? Let me give you a dose of real talk you won't forget. She leaned forward slightly. You sit up there in your millionaire ivory tower pretending to care, while cashing checks off division. Trump didn't break this country. He saved it from the mess your kind left behind. Applause exploded from the conservative side of the crowd. A man in the front row shouted, Damn right! Another stood in protest, hand raised. Leavitt kept going, her eyes fierce, gestures sharp like a live stream in motion. You want to talk about democracy? Let's talk about your show. Every night you decide who's the punchline and who's the villain. I didn't grow up with privilege, Stephen. My parents sold ice cream and used trucks in New Hampshire to make ends meet. No connections, no safety net. She paused just long enough. And guess what? I know what Gen Z wants. Strength, clarity, a country that stands tall, not one run by people clinging to ratings and relevance. Trump delivers that. I'm proud to stand with him. Her voice turned fierce. You call that selling out? I call it winning. No, Cap. The room split. Cheers. Colliding with boos, the energy had turned volatile. Colbert tapped the desk, taken aback by her fire, but not backing down. Winning. He repeated dry and sharp. You're good at staying on message. I'll give you that. But I'm not talking about your upbringing or Trump's promises. I'm talking about you. He leaned in. You stand behind that podium defending press bans, cheering on division, turning politics into a TikTok filter. He raised his voice slightly, conviction cutting through. Gen Z doesn't want freedom traded for tariffs and virality. You're not building a future, Karoline. You're helping Trump build a regime. He let it land. The audience erupted. Louder, now. Some stood, clapping. Others shook their heads. Leavitt laughed, her cold, contemptuous sound. Then she straightened, eyes blazing like steel through glass. A regime? She echoed. You really think I'm going to sit here while you label me a traitor? She uncrossed her arms, leaning in. We're not building a regime. We're rebuilding a country. Gen Z doesn't want your phony moral outrage. They want jobs, safety, and peace. Her voice cut sharper with every word. Trump ends wars. He brings jobs back. And I'm here to say that out loud because your side sure won't. She paused, her tone hardening. You say I'm tearing down democracy? No. I'm tearing down the rotting, hollow system you're a part of. The one that's failed Americans, over and over again. Her voice faltered just slightly, for half a second, as something deeper surfaced. A memory. July 2024. The hospital. The pain. Her son's first breath. the news of Trump's near assassination blaring from a TV in the corner. She was back at work 3 days later, still stitched, still bleeding, but standing at the podium for him. For what came next? Now, that fire lit her words. "I'm a mother, Stephen." Her voice dropped. "This isn't about Trump alone. This is for my son, for his generation. You sit here and laugh. But I fight," she pointed to her chest. "I don't back down. Not for you. Not for anyone." Applause thundered from the right side of the crowd. A group in the center row stood, clapping. The boos came too, but they were swallowed in the roar, and for a moment the studio didn't feel like a talk show. It felt like a battlefield. Cheers erupted from some in the crowd, while others shook their heads, murmuring dissent. Colbert leaned back, hands sliding off the desk, his eyes flickering with a brief unease before he quickly regained composure. "A mother, huh?" His voice was low, edged with sarcasm. "I respect that, Karoline. But don't use your kid to justify helping Trump strangle freedom." He leaned in, eyes blazing with resolve. "You say you're tearing down the system. I see you tearing down what makes America, what makes Gen Z, and they'll pay the price for it. Are you sure you're building a future or just burning it?" Leavitt didn't blink. Instead, a cold, razor-sharp smile crept across her face. "Stephen," she said coolly, "you want to play the emotion card with me? Fine, but I'm sure, because I see the results every day." She gestured as if addressing the entire country. "Americans see jobs. They see peace. They see a nation that doesn't bow." Her voice grew stronger. "You say I'm burning the future. No. I'm burning the outdated past you cling to. Gen Z isn't paying for this. They're leading it. And I'm their voice." She crossed her arms, eyes blazing like an unquenchable flame. The studio exploded. Applause and boos collided in a fierce storm of sound. A woman's shout pierced through. "Karoline, the Queen!" While someone nearby raised a protesting hand. Colbert leaned back, his eyes a swirl of confusion and determination to regain control. Leavitt faced him, poised, arms crossed, her fiery, gaze as intense as ever. Her cold smile lingered, a silent challenge. He took a deep breath and leaned forward, voice low but loaded. "Karoline, you talk a lot about winning and building a future. So let's talk about a specific Trump win you're proud of. The Russia deal to end the Ukraine war. You call it peace, but plenty call it a cave-in. You think bowing to Putin is how to make America great?" The question landed like a heavy stone. The audience hushed, waiting for her reply. Leavitt tilted her head, a smirk creeping up as if she had been waiting for this. "Stephen, you just said Trump bowed to Putin." She replied, voice soft but sharp as a razor. "No, Cap. You're dead. Wrong. We didn't cave. We brought peace." She straightened. "Trump sat down with Russia, negotiated like a real leader, and now Ukraine's no longer a battlefield. You call that bowing? I call it winning." Her voice rang clear and proud. "Winning for America. Winning for the world. You want the war to drag on just so media like you have something to criticize?" She gestured lightly, eyes sweeping the audience as if drawing them in. Applause erupted from the conservative side, loud and resolute. But the boos from the liberal side were just as fierce. A man in the middle row shouted, "Peace is real," before being drowned out by murmurs of dissent. Colbert shook his head, a faint smile returning. But this time it was the smile of a man gearing up for a counterattack. "Peace is real," he said, sarcasm thick in his tone. "I like how you put that, Karoline. But look closely. Russia still holds Crimea, Ukraine lost land, and Putin's grinning on TV. Whose victory is that? Not America's. Certainly not Ukraine's." He crossed his arms, gaze sharp and challenging. You say Trump negotiated like a leader, but I see a guy who let Russia win without firing a shot. Don't you find that worrying? Sporadic applause followed, some nodding in agreement. Leavitt let out a light laugh, not cheerful but full of disdain. She sat up straighter, emphasizing every word with precise gestures. Stephen, you're trying to paint the picture you want, but I'm not letting you. Trump didn't let Russia win. He ended a war. You guys just sat back and griped about Crimea and Ukraine. She leaned forward, voice firm and steady. That was a mess before Trump came back. He fixed it by bringing everyone to the table. You want America to send troops and waste taxpayers' money keeping the fight going? No. We chose peace, and that's what Americans want. Her eyes locked on Colbert's, daring him. Got any data proving people hate this deal? Or do you just like telling horror stories? Colbert nodded as if conceding a point, but the spark of determination in his eyes only grew sharper. Horror stories, no, he said, voice rising slightly. Karoline, I'm just stating the truth you don't want to hear. I don't need data to know that caving to a guy like Putin is a sign of weakness, not strength. You say Americans want peace, sure, but they also want an America that doesn't kneel to anyone. You just said Canada's on its knees when Trump hit them with tariffs. Now you claim Russia didn't win when Trump caved. Where's your logic? Paused, letting the question hang. The audience clapped louder, whistles ringing out. Leavitt didn't blink. She smiled, a cold, sharp smile. Stephen, you want to play the logic game with me? Fine. Canada's on its knees because we're stronger economically. That's leverage. Leavitt fired back without missing a beat. Russia and Ukraine are not the same. Trump didn't cave. He's smarter than you guys. She leaned forward, eyes blazing. He knew endless fighting solves nothing, so he negotiated to stop the bloodshed. That's not weakness, that's strategy. You want to call it kneeling? I call it leading. Her voice sharpened with pride. You cling to the past while we're moving forward, on TikTok and with my 728,000 followers to prove it. She crossed her arms, daring Colbert to strike back. The studio erupted again, applause from the conservative side roaring louder than the liberal boos. A woman in the front row raised her hand, shouting, "Trump's smart!" while her neighbor shook their head, muttering dissent. Colbert tapped the desk, clearly displeased. Leading? He echoed, sarcasm thick in his voice. Sounds like a fan's way to justify letting Putin off the hook. But hey, that's your style, turning everything into a social media win. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. You say you're moving forward, but I see someone hiding behind TikTok instead of facing reality. Are you sure Americans want peace by letting our enemies laugh in our faces? Leavitt didn't flinch. She laughed, her hands moving like she was live streaming. Stephen, you keep clinging to your enemies laughing narrative. I'm not buying it. Americans want peace. And Trump delivered. She leaned in, eyes fierce. Not by kneeling, but by playing tough. You say I'm hiding behind TikTok? No. I'm facing you right here winning on every platform because I'm real. Her voice grew louder, defiant. You want reality? Reality is the war is over, jobs are back, and America is stronger than ever. Don't like it? Too bad. We don't need your approval. Colbert took a deep breath, leaning forward, voice low but cutting like a knife. Karoline, you say you don't need my approval, and I respect that confidence. But I've got one last question. He fixed her with a steady gaze. You're the youngest press secretary in history. But do you ever wonder if you're just Trump's puppet? A young face to hide behind when things fall apart? The question landed like a final punch. The audience gasped. A few scattered claps came from the Liberal side. Leavitt sat still, her eyes hardening. Then she laughed. Not a soft laugh, but a bold, defiant one that echoed through the studio. She straightened, locking her gaze on Colbert. "Stephen, you just called me a puppet!" Her voice dropped, but thundered. "No, Cap. That's the lowest blow you could throw, and I'm not letting you off easy." She stood firm. "I'm not a puppet. I'm the voice of Trump, of Gen Z, of millions of Americans you and the old media abandoned." Her eyes burned bright. "I've got my own mind, and it says America needs a leader like Trump, not ivory tower MCs like you." She pointed directly at him. "You think I'm hiding behind him? No, I'm standing right here in your face, defending what he's built." Her voice rang out, unyielding. The conservative side exploded in applause, loud enough to drown out the Liberal boos. A man in the front row shouted, "Karoline's real!" while the person beside him muttered dissent. Leavitt leaned forward, eyes ablaze. "You think I have no mind of my own just because I'm loyal to Trump? Wrong." Her voice grew firmer. "I'm loyal because I believe in him, the jobs, the peace, the strength he brings. I grew up middle class. No privilege, no one pulling my strings. I chose this path, and I'm proud of it." She smiled, fierce. "You want to call that a puppet? I call it strength. Strength you can't cancel." The studio thundered with conservative applause. A storm of support. A group in the middle row stood, cheering wildly. The Liberal boos tried to rise but were overwhelmed by the fervor. Colbert leaned back, hands off the desk, eyes flickering with unease before he regained composure. "Strength," he repeated sarcastically. "I see someone good at justifying." He fixed her with a smirk, eyes flashing, trying one last corner. "But if you're so proud, why not answer straight? When Trump's wrong, do you ever say no to him? Or just nod and post a TikTok?" The audience clapped sporadically, some nodding. Leavitt smiled, cold and razor-sharp. "Stephen, you want me to say no to Trump to prove I'm not a puppet? That's a cheap trick, and I'm not playing." She leaned in, voice steady. "When Trump's wrong, I work with him to fix it. But he's rarely wrong because he knows what Americans need." She stood tall. "I'm not here to nod or dance. I'm here to tell the truth." Her eyes blazed with defiance. "Gen Z and Trump are shaping the future, and you can't cancel us, no matter how hard you try." She paused, voice low and fierce. "You want a final answer? Here it is. We win. You lose. Deal with it." The studio went wild. Conservative applause roared, shaking the floor. A woman in the front row yelled, "Karoline's the queen!" as Liberal boos were completely drowned out. Leavitt stood waving confidently, her blonde hair glinting under the lights. She turned to Colbert, nodding slightly, as if to say, "That's that." Colbert leaned back, tapping the desk one last time. Colbert forced a smile that barely touched his lips. "Deal with it, huh?" He muttered low. "Thanks, Karoline. It's been an interesting night." He faced the camera, trying to maintain composure, but his eyes betrayed his frustration. The audience buzzed with electricity as Leavitt strode off the stage. Her steps proud and purposeful, white sneakers clicking firmly against the floor. The cameras followed her every move, capturing her blazing eyes and confident smile as she disappeared backstage. Colbert sank back in his chair, taking a deep breath. His expression was a mix of defeat and forced calm. "All right, folks, we'll be back in a few minutes," he said, his voice slightly off. The studio still thrummed with the energy of the clash between Karoline Leavitt and Stephen Colbert. As the crowd filtered out, some clapped non-stop while others grumbled their discontent. But no one could deny this was a TV battle for the ages. Within minutes, social media exploded. The hashtag #NaCarolineFiresBack shot to the top of X's trending list, with tens of thousands of posts flooding in from both sides. Conservatives hailed Leavitt as a Gen Z hero. One user wrote, "Karoline just crushed Colbert. Trump's got the ultimate spokesperson." Meanwhile, liberals fired back hard. A standout post read, "She's Trump's mouthpiece, nothing more. Colbert tried, but you can't beat that arrogance." Clips from the interview spread like wildfire across TikTok and YouTube, racking up millions of views in just hours. The press dove into the frenzy. Fox News ran the headline, "Young Press Secretary takes down Colbert in TV showdown, praising Leavitt as the new face of conservative politics." CNN countered with a critical analysis. Leavitt embodies Trump admin's arrogance. No answers, just attacks. Some neutral commentators called it a Gen Z win in politics, highlighting how Leavitt used social media and modern flair to dominate Colbert. Others warned she was turning the White House into a media game, and that wasn't sustainable. Love her or hate her, everyone agreed. Leavitt had left an indelible mark that night. Backstage, Leavitt didn't rest. Just 30 minutes after stepping off stage, she posted on X, "Vibe check for Colbert. He tried and failed. Gen Z and Trump don't back down. No cap." The post racked up over 100,000 likes in an hour, cementing her image as an unyielding fighter. Her walk off stage, white sneakers, clicking, eyes proud, became an online icon. Some turned it into a meme, adding the phrase, "Deal with it," the very words she'd thrown at Colbert's face. With her Gen Z style and fierce loyalty to Trump, Leavitt had cemented her status, using Colbert as a springboard to send a clear message. This administration doesn't play by the old rules. The battle was over, but its echoes would linger, shaping the narrative of a rising young conservative generation. The story of Karoline Leavitt and Stephen Colbert mirrored the stark political and media polarization in the U.S. today, where traditional values collide with a younger generation's push for change. With Trump in his second term and Leavitt using TikTok and X to defend policies like press bans and tariffs, it showed how social media was reshaping how Americans communicate and argue. Leavitt's verbal sparring, from countering Colbert's undermining democracy accusations with "Trump saved America" to her "Vibe check for Colbert," reflected the deep divide between conservatives and liberals. This reality plays out in debates over free speech, media's role, and tech's impact in the U.S. of 2025. Her resilience, middle-class roots, and motherhood also connected with viewers, hinting at how Americans today seek personal authenticity amid public criticism. The takeaway? In a polarized society, confidence and adaptability to new tech are key to overcoming pressure. Leavitt didn't just defend herself against Colbert. She used her Gen Z flair to turn the tables. A reminder that whether at work or in life, you've got to tell your story your way, not let others define you. Take a page from Leavitt. When cornered, don't just defend. Strike back with your truth. Whether through an expose or a face-to-face talk, in America today, where every opinion gets dissected, winning isn't just about being right. It's about making people listen. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss epic drama like the Karoline and Colbert showdown. Thanks for watching. Catch you in the next video, where we keep vibe checking what's hot in America.